We're going to go ahead and get started. It's just about 5 after. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Bethany Fauché. I'm the Stewardship and Outreach Director for Coastal Prairie Conservancy, formerly Katy Prairie Conservancy. Elisa Donovan's also co-hosting with me. Elisa is our Vice President and General Counsel. Together, Elisa and I have been the two staff that have really been championing this conservation cemetery initiative, which now is real. So we're excited to talk about it with all of you tonight. And again, you can put questions in the chat and we will go through those after the PowerPoint. And you can also just ask your questions at the end. So without further ado, we're going to start tonight's presentation with a little background on the Coastal Prairie Conservancy. And PowerPoint is going slow. Let's live. Yes. All right. So as I mentioned, some of you who may be from the Houston area and have been around a while or followed our efforts, we were named the Katy Prairie Conservancy up until about 3 years ago when we changed our name to better reflect the region where we work to protect wild places, prairies, and working lands here on the Gulf Coast of Texas. We were founded in 1992 by volunteers, bird watchers, hunters, fishermen, nature lovers who wanted to protect what we know as the Katy Prairie. Today, our work has been ongoing since 92, and we currently protect 33,000 acres across Southeast Texas, including about 19,000 acres on the Katy Prairie. And later on, I'll show you a few maps showing where we protect land. We are an accredited nonprofit land trust, which means what we do is protect land with tools called conservation easements or through fee ownership like we have on the Katy Prairie. So as I mentioned, our missions are to conserve land, steward that land so we have healthy wild places in our state, to provide community resilience through things like flood protection, pollinator habitat. We also engage in public policy and research. And of course, we engage in lots of education and outreach. And our new conservation cemetery is really part of our community outreach efforts today. So a little background. Some of you may have seen this map before if you've studied our ecosystems in the US. The North American tall grass prairie was once the largest contiguous biome on our continent. You can see it traverses Canada all the way down to South Texas and even into Mexico. And this ecosystem is also one of the most endangered ecosystems in the world. Today, of that original tall grass prairie in the North American continent, only about 4% of it is left unaltered. So there are lots of nonprofits and government agencies that are working together today to protect as much of it as we can and to restore prairie habitats that may have been turned into farms or cities or towns. So wherever we can find healthy grassland, we like to help our partners protect. Where we work is here, the coastal prairie. A lot of people think that word coast literally means the coastline where we meet the ocean, the Gulf of Mexico / America. But the coastal prairie is a bigger ecoregion than that. It was originally about 9 million acres, going from South Texas all the way over to Louisiana near Lafayette. This prairie ecosystem is even more endangered than North America's grassland. Today, on this map, what's left unaltered is about 1% of that original extent of coastal prairie. So it's a highly endangered ecosystem. And where we work is in a 9-county region near Houston. And you can see on that map, the Katy Prairie is, of course, where we're headquartered at. The Katy Prairie was originally about 750,000 acres of prairie habitat, extending from the Brazos River in the west all the way to the 610 Loop by the Galleria in the east. So a huge, huge connected region. And our work today is in this 9-county region on the coastal prairie. So Harris, Waller, Austin, Colorado counties, Wharton, Fort Bend, Jackson, Matagorda, and Brazoria. And this map shows lands that we have protected through ownership or conservation easements with the families who own them, or there are public conservation lands, private conservation lands as well shown on this map. And so we work with a lot of partners to try to protect as much natural land as we can in this region. Okay. All right, so then we're going to zoom in once more because tonight we're talking about the Katy Prairie, which is our main system of preserves. Okay, so here we are, and hopefully many of you have visited us before out on the Katy Prairie. Currently, we own about 13,000 acres of land on the Katy Prairie, and those are the green shaded areas on the map. Nelson Farms, Abear 2, Pattison, Mary Manor, Indian Grass Preserve, and Warren Ranch and Jack Road South. Those preserve sections make up those 13,000 acres. And then the tan shaded areas, these are protected through conservation easements. So we don't own these lands. Someone else owns them, a family, or it could be a company owns them, but they want to ensure that they're never developed and they always remain open, agriculture, natural land, wetlands. And so we've worked with those private individuals to protect their properties as well. And it's a win-win for us because you can see how important those brown shaded lands are to connect the Katy Prairie into as contiguous a habitat as we can make it. What's also really cool about our efforts is as a land trust, we're always working to continue to protect more lands and to fill in more and more of the Katy Prairie. So again, it's about 19,000 acres today. We would love to get closer to 25 or 30,000 acres of protected land that we can connect. So the cemetery that we have launched in this last year is today one of our outreach programs. And tonight I wanted to give all of you context for who we are and how else we work in our community. So you have the big picture as well as an understanding of this new conservation cemetery. In the community, we have what we call 9 Natives Gardens at a few different locations. We help schools, churches, individuals set up pocket prairies. We have a program called Great Grow Out, where people help us grow rare native plants at home. We provide seed collecting trips out into beautiful remnant prairie habitats. Of course, we do outreach events, workshops offsite, work with volunteers at various locations. On the prairie, we provide access to our preserves. We have trail systems. And right now we're in a really exciting period of growth where we're encouraging and looking for ways where we can have more people out on the Katy Prairie learning about it and enjoying it. And then, of course, the Conservation Cemetery, Blazing Star Sanctuary, is today one of those on-site on the prairie outreach endeavors. All right. So now we're going to dive into why we're here tonight to learn about our initiative, Nature's Burial, and specifically Blazing Star Sanctuary, our brand new cemetery. So why did we decide to do this? As a land trust, we were excited about the idea of launching a conservation cemetery because it's a win for nature and it's a win for people. It fulfills a direct need that our community had. There was not a green burial option for the Gulf Coast, for the Houston region, and we wanted to be able to offer that to people. It also allows people to engage with conservation in a really meaningful, personal way. And we love that because we want more people to care about and understand our coastal prairie and our Katy Prairie ecosystem. It allows people to help with restoration. So every burial Every natural burial plot on the cemetery is about 108 square feet. So if you're purchasing a burial plot, you have a sense of ownership. You have 108 square feet of prairie habitat that you can help us steward and protect. It also provides program funding that fully aligns with our mission. We are going to protect the Katy Prairie literally forever. And so this provides a tool for us to serve the community while also providing a revenue source that allows us to care for our preserves. And then, of course, we're excited that this is a brand new sanctuary for our citizens, for wildlife, for plants, for people to come out and enjoy. We get this question a lot. What is green burial? What do I need to know about it? How do I need to prepare if I know I want a green burial? The Green Burial Council is a wonderful nonprofit that helps to educate people about this, and they define green burial as a way of caring for the dead with minimal environmental impact that aids in conservation of natural resources, reduction of carbon, and protection of worker health, and restoration or preservation of habitat. So that's the full definition of what it means to have a green burial. And we are a member of the Green Burial Council as well as the Conservation Burial Alliance. And we're going to get into green burial a little bit more further. So a lot of times we tell people that green burial is really just burial. It's simple. In the US, we are a little bit different. We have a unique history with our cemetery and burial practices than other parts of the world. Many other countries across the world only practice natural burial or primarily practice natural burial. But in the US, a tradition of embalming and body preservation came into practice during the Civil War. And some of you who study history may know about this. The photo on the left is a special container where they had Abraham Lincoln's body. And then the train photo on the bottom right was a train that actually toured the United States after Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. And they embalmed his body so that they could take him on tour because he was such a popular president. People wanted to see him and pay their respects. Abraham Lincoln also encouraged embalming of Civil War soldiers. So it was a way for them to be taken back home to their families. Again, they had to travel across the country to get back to their loved ones so they could have a service. And so when that was widely practiced during the Civil War, it became sort of a new tradition for the US and something people thought they almost needed to do or had to do. And now the green burial movement is really about reminding all of us that we don't have to do that. It's an option, and if it's needed, certainly it's available, but it's not always needed. And if it's not, it's certainly healthier for the planet and for people if we avoid chemical embalming. So that's my little history lesson on that tonight. So again, we talked about green burial. Now, what is a conservation cemetery? There are cemeteries out there that are green cemeteries or natural cemeteries or even hybrid cemeteries. So what do we mean when we say conservation cemetery? It's really a way to conserve the land through the new but very old practice of natural burial. So conservation burial is a green burial that serves a higher, larger conservation purpose. And it's the highest tier of green burial certification through the Green Burial Council. That highest tier certification requires us to forever protect the land in partnership with a land trust or government agency. Obviously, we're doing that because Coastal Prairie Conservancy is a land trust. And so we've set up the legal protections for this property in perpetuity. It also requires protection of a minimum of 20 acres of land or 5 acres of land if it's contiguous to other preserves. So here on the Katy Prairie, we're already protecting about 19,000 acres. This new 68-acre preserve and our cemetery is about 8 acres of that is contiguous. So we were able to meet that requirement. It also requires really low density burials, and that's so that we're disturbing nature as little as possible when we conduct a burial service. And then they also require us to have protocols that care for the ecosystem, which we do already. But it gives us peace of mind and gives you peace of mind that the Green Burial Council's also ensuring that we're following the best practices going forward. And again, y'all may have questions come up, so you can write them down or save them, and we'll make sure to answer all of your questions because I know there's a lot of topics. All right. There we go. So what we're really happy about is we platted our cemetery, Blazing Star Sanctuary, back in September. And then we worked with the Green Burial Council to apply for our certification as a conservation cemetery. And one of our goals was to become Texas' first certified conservation cemetery, which we did achieve. And we're super excited and proud of that fact. So you can actually see us on the map now. This map is on the Green Burial Council's website, and we are that purple icon. It's not quite in the right location on the Texas map, but that is us when you click on it. There are only 13 certified conservation cemeteries in the US right now. All those little purple icons, those are conservation cemeteries, and they're listed over here on the right. And as you can see, we are the only one currently in Texas. Another great group, the Conservation Burial Alliance, helps to connect all of us so we can support each other, help educate each other, answer questions. Because there's a lot of great groups, land trusts like ourselves, who are doing the same thing because we think it's such a win-win for conservation. All right, so if we go back to our map of the Katy Prairie, this was under wraps for a while. It took us, we've been in the planning stages for a few years, and we wanted to choose the best location possible. So now this location highlighted yellow, that is the location of Blazing Star Prairie. And within that preserve, Blazing Star Sanctuary is our dedicated natural burial ground. We have signage out, we have an official address, we have a visit page both on our website and on our Nature's Burial page. So you can actually drive by today and see the new preserve there, which is really exciting for us. And so we're also starting to give tours to people who are interested in natural burial. And very soon we'll be doing open house events there so more people can see the property. So as I mentioned, these last few years, Elisa and I and others on staff have been working hard behind the scenes to plan our conservation cemetery. We've worked with landscape architects, the sketch on the left, and then that was one of the beginning phases. That middle image is taken from our survey. We had a survey company come out and help us plat the cemetery and then fill it with Waller County. And then that beautiful map on the right shows our preserve as it is today. We have two wetlands that we dug out. We did earthwork to restore these wetlands back in September. They're gorgeous wetlands. There's already tons of ducks and plovers, leopard frogs enjoying these new habitats. We have a small parking area at the bottom today. And then this section here, these are the fully platted natural burial plots available. Oh, it's freezing again. Let me give it a second. All right, PowerPoint. So we, as I mentioned, we dedicated our cemetery last September. And so we are fully recognized and protected now as a cemetery. We began restoration of the site last summer. We planted a fall cover crop this past fall. And actually, in about a week and a half, we'll be planting a spring cover crop on the site. And this is what we do for prairie restoration. It helps to restore soil health, fix nitrogen in the soil, add compost to the soil, and it makes our prairie seeding more successful. So we'll be seeding the prairie around October of this year. And we're very excited to get to that stage. So restoring a prairie, bringing a prairie back to life isn't an instant management tool. It takes a year and a half or so for that process. We did begin selling burial plots in January, and we've started doing events like this that all of you are aware of. We've made a much more public-facing website for the cemetery so people can learn more about it. Our next phases will be continuing to sell burial plots, and then we're also launching trail construction, doing more visitor improvements in 2025 and 2026. And we'll have more grand opening events along with the trail and public access improvements. So what's happening today? This is what the site looks like across today. So you can actually see the cover crop rows. These are seeded with a no-till drill tractor, which allows us to disturb the soil as little as possible. You can see the edge of one of our new wetlands. And then Elisa actually took this photo of this beautiful blackneck stilt in that wetland just last week. We also have lots of meadowlarks. This is a highly not endangered, but a rare and rarer grassland bird. Their populations have dropped about 80% or so in the last 60 years. So when we see meadowlarks already utilizing a new grassland prairie that we're restoring, we get really excited about that. We've also seen bobwhite quail on the preserve. Leopard frogs are in the wetlands, all sorts of sandpipers, including long-billed curlews. We even had a bald eagle in one of the wetlands the day of our very first burial service, which was very cool. And this is our goal. This is a really nice photo of our Indian grass preserve. This prairie was seeded back in 2017. So this is an 8-year-old prairie. Restoration is not instant, but our goal is for Blazing Star Prairie to be just as healthy and functional and beautiful as Indian grass is today. So with that, we have land management we're doing right now on the site. We've created the wetlands. We are about to plant the second cover crop. We'll plant the prairie this fall, and then it will actually be allowed to rest for 3 years. And it allows those native grasses and wildflowers to mature. After that 3 years passes, we use tools that mimic things like old ancient bison herds that used to come across the grasslands of North America. So we'll disturb the prairie through things like cattle grazing, prescribed fire, and even mowing when we need to. And that actually helps all those wildflowers and grasses to be stronger, more diverse, and more beautiful long term. We also have some tree plantings planned. We've already planted a hedgerow on one side of the property, and we're going to plant some live oaks to give us shade across our prairie. Ongoing, we'll be doing invasive species removals, volunteer events, establishing our trail system. And then even as part of our burial services, families can essentially volunteer and help to restore the burial plot on the day of a burial through wildflower seedings, scattering native prairie hay, and even plantings right there on the burial site. So it'll be a very publicly involved restoration process. Some of you may know your wildflowers. Not everybody does. So we like to explain why did we name it the Blazing Star Sanctuary. Blazing Star is this wildflower. It's a genus of flowers called Liatris. Common name is Blazing Star. They're beautiful. They're native to the coastal prairie. They're a great pollinator plant. And it also has some nice connotations for being a natural burial ground. That famous Carl Sagan quote, "We are all stardust," I think has a nice added meaning and value to this name for a natural cemetery. So we loved it. That's why we're going with the name. And we do intend to encourage this wildflower across the property. And it blooms July, August when nothing else really wants to bloom. And so we're excited to see that happen in the coming years. All right, so more nitty gritty, commonly asked questions. People ask us, in a prairie, how will I find my loved one's grave? So there's a few ways we do that. One, we have, because we're platted, we have GPS coordinates for every single burial plot. The North Garden and South Garden, these are cremains plots. So if you have a biodegradable urn, we can inter urns as well. And those are platted. These are smaller 5x5 plots. North Garden and South Garden. In the middle natural burial area, those are the larger plots. These are each 13 and a half feet by 8 feet. So again, 108 square feet of land for each plot. So they're GPS coordinated. Plus, we have these metal markers. And these are commonly used in conservation cemeteries because they're flat to the ground, they're small, but they allow us to locate graves precisely and mark an interment. So back in January, we interred Andrea's urn, and that's the marker that shows her urn has been placed there in the ground. On our website, we also have a walk to grave feature that allows you to, PowerPoint is not letting me tonight, that allows you to locate a grave and then use Google Map technology to drive and then walk right up to a plot. So that technology is very helpful. In the future, we plan to have a memorial wall. It hasn't, we're still in the early design phases, but we picture something might double as a bench, separate the natural burial areas from the rest of the preserve, but something really nice and beautiful where people can go, honor their loved ones, see their name on a wall, because obviously, there we go. Obviously, these small in-ground markers won't be visible on a normal day when the prairie can be 6 feet, 8 feet tall. For a service, if we're having a burial service, obviously we're going to mow a path to that grave location and then mow the actual grave so it's nice and open for a gathering. We can also do that like if a family has a memorial event and they let us know, we can mow access to a burial site for special events. Otherwise, it will be prairie and you'll know your loved one is there among nature. So this again is that screenshot from our website today. You can do this if you want to try it. Just type in Andrea's name. It'll show you exactly this. It'll show you the GPS coordinates where her urn is interred. And you can even get directions that takes you directly to her exact burial plot. So this is a very helpful tool for a prairie that's also a cemetery. Another common question we get is, what is the role of the cemetery versus what is the role of the funeral director? And do I even need a funeral director? And so the main things we need, so this bottom section here from the main things we need from a funeral director is they complete the state mandated paper. That is their role. So they file the death certificate, they notify Social Security Administration, they can notify veterans benefits, and they help the family navigate all of that. They also prepare the body. That may just be casketing, dressing them, or preparing a linen shroud and shrouding the decedent. Funeral homes also provide refrigeration, which is required in Texas within 24 hours of passing. And lastly, they provide the transportation of the body from the place of passing to their funeral home to the cemetery for final disposition. So that's the role of the funeral home. When you select a funeral director that you intend to work with, it's really important just to communicate your wishes. Let them know you are doing a conservation burial. And let them know that you want no embalming, of course, the chemicals, the formaldehyde that's involved in that There's certainly not in line with a green burial. So that's number one. And number two is let them know the container type. More and more funeral directors are getting educated about green burial, and some of them are even very excited about it. And so they offer biodegradable wicker caskets like this one shown on the screen. This is a lovely casket that a local funeral director does use. And then give the funeral home our name and our contact information. There are a few funeral homes in Houston that are already marketing green burial services, but we can work with any funeral home. And if the funeral home needs a little education or specifics from us, we're going to help guide them through that. We're going to tell them what our requirements are regarding the burial container, access to the site, and then we will remind them again, refrigeration only, no embalming. That is the main requirement we all insist on. All righty. So the actual ceremony, a burial ceremony at Blazing Star Sanctuary begins with the procession to the site. We have this beautiful wagon that's made by the Amish in Pennsylvania, and one person can actually pull this burial wagon across natural terrain. So this wagon allows us to get a casketed body or shrouded body from the hearse at our parking area to the prairie for a natural burial. So that's step one. And we will work with the funeral home for that transportation, for the passage from the person from the hearse out to the cemetery. Then it's really up to the family. This is an image showing a family who decided to hand lower their wicker casket. We have hand lowering ropes. We have a wooden cedar frame with decks just like this image, and we can set that up for a service. Some families don't have pallbearers or would prefer a less hands-on approach. So we also have cemetery service contractors who provide the lowering device, which is that automatic device we're used to seeing at cemeteries. It will lower the casket for you. And then also for a burial service, we have facilities up at Indian Rest Preserve. We have our welcome center, we have restrooms, and those are available to families for a burial service. We don't have restrooms on site at Blazing Star Sanctuary. It is just nature, but 2 miles north, we have our restrooms and our public gathering area, picnic tables, classrooms, all of that's available. And so we can work with you if that's something you're interested in. And as I mentioned earlier, we would mow access to the site so that the families are not going to have to traverse across a prairie for the day of a burial service. Some more images. We do get this question. Flowers are allowed. They just need to be cut flowers. So no plastic, no foam, no glass vases. But if you bring cut flowers of any type, those of course are totally appropriate. You can leave them at the site, or you can put them in the grave if you prefer to do that, like this image here. Another question we get is about the burial itself. Our graves are dug roughly 4 feet deep, and that follows state law. So the common thought that it's a 6-foot deep grave is not actually standard practice. Even conventional cemeteries commonly dig about 4 feet deep. The state law requires 2 feet of soil above the burial container. And so that's what we're following. We don't compact the soil. That would not be healthy for nature, for the plants. And so after a burial, you will see, like this image, the soil will take time to naturally settle. This cemetery uses pine needles. We don't have a lot of pine trees on the prairie, so we use native prairie hay to scatter over a burial to help dress it at the end of a service. We also use wildflower seeds. You can bring cut flowers to help dress your burial place at the end of a service. And then at the very end, we'll also place that metal marker right over the center so that we know the interment has taken place, and the family can help with that as well. a second. PowerPoint's thinking again. All right. So this last image is not of the site itself today, but this is a photo taken from another site on the Katy Prairie about this time of year. We've got evening primroses and Indian paintbrush. Looks like dandelions maybe in that image. And so eventually a burial site will settle and will be covered over by wildflowers and grasses. And in springtime, we hope it looks a lot like this. And so again, we want people to understand that this is a nature preserve and a place for biodiversity to flourish first and foremost. All righty. So obviously people ask this a lot. How does it work? How, if I want to purchase a plot, how do I go about doing that? And so we wanted to talk about that tonight as well. The most important agreement is called the purchase agreement. And it's a contract that you simply fill out your name, address, contact information, who the purchaser of the burial plot is, and who the owner of the plot will be. Could be the same person or could be a different person. It's up to you. And then you do get to choose the exact plot that you're purchasing. Right now, I'm zooming in a little bit. We have platted the entire cemetery, but we've only marked with those metal markers, we've only marked rows A, B, and C. So about 120 spaces have been fully marked. So currently in our quiet opening phase, those are the 3 rows that we're actively selling, showing people. Over the next year, we'll be marking all of the additional rows and plots across the cemetery. And there's around 2,000 burial plots. Up here in the cremains section, you can see these have been marked as well. So we've started to mark our north garden of 5 by 5 cremains spaces. So those are also available. And then the south garden cremains is here. We have actually sold 2 on the south garden, and so we'll be marking more of those. So if there's a few options as far as starting the process, some families are choosing to come see the cemetery on their own, just drive by and look at it, make sure they know where it is and they like how it looks. Some families who are more serious have requested a tour of the site. So I have given tours to families who are seriously interested. As I mentioned, we'll next be offering open house days where one of us is just there and you can come to an open house event at the cemetery, ask your questions, see the plots, see how the restoration is going. And so we're excited to offer that next, and that'll be on the website in the next few weeks. You can also do everything remotely if you live out of state or you want this, but you don't need to come and see it to decide what you want. We can meet on Zoom, we can talk remotely, we can email back and forth to complete the contracts. And then for in-person, you can meet with me at our field office, or you can meet with Elisa, who's at our Kirby office, whichever location is more convenient for you. Kirby office is just north of Rice Village. Our field office is on the Katy Prairie, about 2 miles from the cemetery. So if you want to meet with either of us to work, have us answer questions and fill out the purchase agreement, we can do that in person as well. Once a purchase agreement is completed, you would sign it and then we sign it. And then you can set up payment. You can make a 1 lump sum payment for your plot. The natural burial plots are currently for sale for $4,000 each. It is a one-time simple price. The cremains plots are $1,500. And you can choose, which plot you're interested in of the ones that we have marked thus far. You can make payment in 1 lump sum, or you can make a payment over 10 months. So for the $4,000 plot, that would be 10 $400 payments. The main requirement, of course, is that a plot is paid for before it can be used for a burial service. So once a plot's paid for, then we issue what's called the Certificate of Burial Rights. That's something you want to keep on file. You want to let your family know where it is. We will have it on file as well. And that makes you the full owner of the interment rights for that specific burial plot. So it's a legal document assuring your burial ownership of that plot. When a burial is actually going to occur, beyond that, then we have another form called the burial notice, where your funeral director, y'all would fill that out and let us know that an interment is happening, who the decedent is that will actually be interred in the space. So this allows you, if you purchase a plot and you may not know who in your family is going to end up using the plot, this is the form that allows you to let us know at time of passing when you're ready to use that plot. The beneficiary form is another form we recommend you fill out that we would provide you. And this just says, if I end up for some unknown reason not using my plot, who do I want it to pass on to? Or within my plot, if I don't use all of the interment rights, that maybe I want someone else to have beneficiary rights to some of my interment rights. And I say that because in our natural burial plots, we allow for 1 natural body burial and 2 cremains burials. So you may want to designate someone for the cremains interments, for example, or you may want to let us know that you don't ever intend to use the interment rights for the cremated remains in an urn. And that's your choice. So that's one additional form that's just helpful for us to have on file for you so we know your wishes. Another common term we use in cemeteries is the open close. And so that's what happens at the day of a burial service. It's not something that you have to think about today if you're filling out a purchase agreement. It's something that happens down the road when the actual burial service is going to be occurring. So we have a few options for opening and closing for the time of a burial. We have 2 contractors who will come out with a mini excavator and carefully open the location for the service, for the burial. They can do the entire service where they open and then they wait and then they close the grave and enter the dirt goes over the casket to finish the service. Or a family can be more hands-on if they wish, and our contractor can come out, open the grave, and then volunteers, family members, pallbearers can actually hand close a grave by using shovels, which we provide. So often in green burials, families like to be a little more involved or hands-on, and so we offer that as a way to do that if that appeals to you. Opening closing costs, we do have those right now. They are subject to change because we're going to be around for forever. So we have our current pricing that's based on our contractor pricing today. We can share that with you, but then it's current prices. It's not something that may be guaranteed for years in the future. So I think that is actually our last slide. So we left ample room in this webinar tonight to let y'all let y'all ask questions of myself and of Elisa. Again, you can type them into the chat, or you can just unmute yourself if you have a question you'd like to ask us. And Elisa, if you think I missed anything, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, there are a couple questions in the chat that I'll share. So one was, you mentioned urns. Can you just scatter cremains in the plot?
In a plot, certainly. Yeah, you don't need to have your cremated remains in an urn. If you have an urn, obviously it needs to be fully biodegradable, so bamboo or pressed paper. And you can check this with us. Some people have done that already. They want to verify the urn they're going to purchase will work. But no, I think it's even more natural to rake in or slowly pour in cremated remains, and you can even mix them with native prairie hay, compost, soil, and that's actually even more natural for the prairie if that's something you choose to do.
Thank you. This next question says, you mentioned urns. Can you just, oh, sorry, for cremains plot, can there be more than one individual?
Not for the cremains plots. They're only 5 by 5, so that only gives us, when we open up for an urn interment, it's about a 2 foot by 2 foot opening. And so that doesn't actually give us that much room. And again, as a conservation cemetery, we're required to disturb Mother Nature as little as possible. So there really is only room for one so that we're not disturbing the earth too much.
All right. And are there trees out there now?
We did a volunteer-led tree planting. So on the left side, this west boundary of the cemetery, we did plant a native hedgerow, but they're little baby trees. They were in like 3-gallon pots. But there are things like Yopon holly, wax myrtles, mulberries, little baby live oaks. What else did we plant? Sumacs, viburnums. And so that's all we've planted so far. There's no other trees. The trees you see on this map are what we plan to do in the year ahead. And those would be more mature live oaks that we'll plant on the site. And those will offer shade for us, for visitors, and help to sort of define the natural burial area as well. But they're not there yet.
Bethany, can you talk about the fact that how many cremains could occur in a full body plot?
Sure. So for the natural burial plots, rows A through YY in the middle there, you can enter 1 body burial and 2 cremains, or you can enter 3 cremains in that one space, which is more cost effective if you have a few urns that you want to inter. And our very first family client, that is what they chose to do. They had 3 urns and they interred them in our very first burial plot. Plot A1 on the map.
I think, let's see. So this is a question, I'll answer this one. It says, since the remains will eventually biodegrade, will there ever be a time that the plot will be reused? And the answer is no. In Texas, it is a permanent right to the family when they purchase a plot, and they own the rights of interment in that plot forever. And so once it's used, it is not to be reused. That is different from some other places in the world where cemeteries may be reused, but not here in Texas. You had mentioned trails. Are those the paths shown in the picture, or will there be trails through the plotted area?
Yeah, so those green shaded areas are roughly where we think the main trails will go. We haven't worked with a landscape architect to fully design those yet. This is like our first map showing where we think our trails will go, including those boardwalks along the wetlands. And then through the natural burial plots, you do see these little skinny rows. Those would only be mowed for a service. So this area will be pretty much contiguous prairie, and you would be able to walk around it. If you wanted to walk through the prairie, then again, that would be a good time to let us know you'd like to get closer to a grave, and then we could mow you a little access path to that grave.
Okay, this is a good one. When do you foresee having all the burial plots available for sale?
If anyone wants to volunteer to help me mark plots, it'll move faster. If we hope, I think, in the next year, it should move much faster now that we have the first rows marked. So it's a very careful process. And our cemetery contractor, they do have a crew that came out and helped me. And it was much faster than the day I started it by myself. So we plan to have the cemetery crew come out a few more times. Our next step will be to mark all the number 1 plots. So we'll have every number 1 marked all the way down. And then we'll have that way, then it gets much easier to triangulate and ensure everything's platted correctly.
And I think this is a related question. Are the plots assigned by CPC or Nature's Burial, or can we pick one, say far to the south?
Yes, you can pick your plot. And right now, today, when you could pick plots from row A, B, or C, because those are fully ready to go, and we have the markers where they're all verified. In the coming months, as we open up more rows and mark more rows across the prairie, then yes, you could choose a plot that's further south on that map. So we are hoping to get it done as soon as possible because we want to give people flexibility in where they choose their plot location.
Okay, this one is a little tricky. Can pet cremains be buried in a full body plot with a person? And I'm going to answer this because I'm the attorney and I do comply with Texas law, which says this is not permissible. There's in fact a bill that someone has introduced in the legislature this spring to allow for pet cremains to be interred in a cemetery. But today there is a attorney general opinion that says it may only be used for human remains. So that is the law. Depending how big your pet cremains are, you know, whether they're in the casket or not, I won't say, but it's not something we can officially offer or, you know, describe or memorialize a pet. That would not be in compliance with Texas law.
And you can
Okay.
let your state representative know that you support that bill that's in the legislature.
Yep. So for multiple cremains within one plot, will the plot be reaccessed later when the second set of cremains will be interred?
Yep. So yeah, for any burial service, we would go mow, access, make sure we have a gathering area. If it's a sunny day, we would likely, you know, recommend a tent from our cemetery service contractor, a few chairs. So we're going to make it easy to approach and navigate for your group. And we'll open up an opening in the earth, again, about 2 feet by 2 feet. So we're going to do all of that in advance before your ceremony and before your family members arrive.
You gave initial pricing. What is the pricing based on, given that this is a new offering in Texas? Will pricing go up over time?
We did do a market analysis. That was one of the things that was happening in the background. We started our market analysis back in 2021. We updated it again last year. For that pricing market analysis, we looked at lots of other conservation cemeteries, green cemeteries, and then we looked at Houston area cemeteries. And our pricing is an affordable median pricing. We're very close to what other green cemeteries are charging, and we're close to what some of the more affordable cemeteries in the Houston area are charging.
Yeah,
the other thing go ahead, yeah.
I'm going to pipe in that we're currently, you know, show a discount because we're in our restoration phase. So we acknowledge it's not yet, you know, wildflowers and grasses like it will be after the restoration is more progressed. But also, you know, the pricing for a plot here, there's a lot of expenses that are not involved that might be in a conventional cemetery. There's no charge for a concrete grave liner, you know, the memorial, you know, the headstones, the conventional coffin, like all of those expenses would certainly be significantly more than the pricing for these plots for the total burial service.
That's right. And I forgot to mention it earlier, but your natural burial container can be something as simple as a quilt or a blanket from your home. So you can spend $0 on the container for a burial with us, or you could choose to do something like a pine box or that wicker casket that we showed earlier.
Okay, this is my favorite question yet. How can you volunteer to help?
That's great. You can email that email right there. Those emails will come to me and then I'll reply to you and we will certainly get your help. There are a few green cemeteries across the US that have a strong volunteer core. And we would love to get to that point where we have a core of volunteers who help us to host families for interment services, help with restoration of the site, help with closing a grave at the end of a service. So those are things that we're planning for in the future. Right now, we have our stewardship volunteers. Our stewardship volunteers meet on the prairie Tuesdays and Fridays, and some Saturdays. And our stewardship volunteers are already helping us, like with the tree planting we did, marking graves, checking on the wetlands. So you could certainly start helping now. And then as we get busier with cemetery services, you could help in that way also.
Someone asked about the address and I'm typing it in the chat. So it's 31930 Morrison Road, Brookshire. Currently it is, you can see it from the road, but there is a gate. So during the restoration phase, it is not, the parking is not open to the public, but you could certainly make an appointment to see it with a scheduled tour. Let's see, could a separate section for a pet cemetery be created? That's a great idea. We've talked about that. That's not currently in the plan, but I do think it's something that a lot of people are interested in. So we're going to have to consider that.
Yep.
Given that CPC is a nonprofit, will some of the monies from this service be used for other ventures by CPC, like buying more land? Yes. That is
For
that.
sure.
I think goes back to Bethany's statement, how this is fully aligned with our mission, and these resources are used to support CPC's mission, whether it's taking care of our lands or acquisition of new lands. That is definitely one of the goals.
Yeah, I think we have to say that the whole premise of this and the support of our board was that we would be actually able to use the revenue to expand and protect more land. We've also got a number of other land trusts who are very interested in this effort and seeing how it succeeds. And the hope is that not only will we be saving our land and developing a green cemetery, but other land trusts around the rest of Texas might be doing that as well. So we think that it'll increase the pace of conservation, both for our own revenue and also for the interest that these other land trusts have.
Thank you, Marianne, president of CPC. So did I hear that there is a seed packet that gets scattered on the grave as part of the burial?
Yes, yes. So as part of the service, we have a selection of native wildflower, grass seeds that the family can scatter as part of a service. And we'll provide that for you. And some of those seeds are from local collected Katy Prairie seed sources. We try to be as local as we can with prairie restoration.
And then this is a perfect question for Bethany. I don't know if Bethany, when she introduced herself, also informed you that she is a licensed funeral director. So she does have experience in this. Not only is she experienced as a biologist and stewardship and volunteer manager, she has a lot of experience in that. So she's perfect to answer this. What happens if the death occurs in another city or state?
Yeah, good question. Any funeral home can help with transportation. A decedent can be flown across the world, and that does happen. Decedent can be driven across the country. If a death occurs far from home, far from your chosen place of interment, it's expensive. It's more expensive to fly a decedent on a commercial plane than it is to fly a living person on a plane. I don't quite know why, but funeral homes will arrange all of that with the airlines or with special services that do that specifically.
Great. So there's a one-time charge for plot purchase exclusives of service and no additional maintenance costs. And the answer is correct. It's the purchase and then the opening and closing charge at the time of service and no other charges. To the cemetery, you would potentially have charges to a funeral director or any, materials or other services that that person might provide. And then how to get involved in the Great Grow Out Project.
Awesome. We have a webpage on our site, coastalprairieconservancy.org. We have a Great Grow Out page, is under our volunteer heading. And you just email me or email Lan Shin. I think both of our email addresses are on that page. And then we will find a time or in a place to get you seed, to get you the germination trays, and get you started with the Great Grow Out program. It's a great way to volunteer from home. We even have school groups do it. Companies do it on their corporate campus. And then when those plants are mature enough, then we arrange a time where you can deliver the plants back to the prairie for restoration events. Or we can meet you to pick up plants. We even have some growers who are so good that we will meet them at their home to pick up plants because they grow hundreds and hundreds of plants for us.
Bethany, can you talk a little bit more about marking the graves, the additional ones? You noted that you're going to do the number 1 on each of these rows. When you do that, does that mean that somebody could take, and I'm sorry, I can't see the numbers, they're just too little, but that
Yeah.
if somebody comes out and they say, oh, I want row at the bottom and you've only marked number 1, but I want number 10, will they be able to do that because they might want to be closer to the water or something? And then secondly, could somebody, not go in order and pick, like, I want row 20 and I want to be in the middle of the thing? And then last but not least, I know there are rows between the bodies, the decedents. So can you talk a little bit about how we won't be disturbing other graves when we're doing a service, say for somebody right next to one where someone's already been buried?
Sure. So if we will only sell a marked plot. So right, my next step is to mark all the number 1s. If someone wanted number 2, that would be easy enough for me to add a marker. If you wanted 10, then that's a couple hours of work for me to get a crew out there and go mark. So we don't want to start getting too scattered or chasing our tails in how we sell plots. We want to make sure we're being very careful about this because it's important that we get it right. And yeah, so again, I've already bothered our cemetery service contractor to schedule our next work day out there to try and get more plots marked. It is something volunteers could help with. Probably wouldn't want to do it in the middle of summer. But it's certainly something people can come help me with. And then, yes, on the map, you can see the small rows between the plots. Yeah, if that's better. And that is for access. One, the plots are large, 13.5 feet by 8 feet. So if we want to be careful and disturb nature, disturb prairie plants as little as possible at the time of a burial. So how we access a plot, we're going to use those rows as much as we can. And then we can access from the top or bottom to a grave plot without unduly disturbing all the plots around it. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I think we've
Right.
hit the time.
Those were good questions. All right. So thank you all for joining us again. We're very I know it's weird to use this word, but we are excited that we have a conservation cemetery and that we're open now and able to offer this service and restore a whole new beautiful section of the Katy Prairie. So yeah, reach out, come visit, and email or call us with any questions or needs, and we're happy to help. Happy to help you in any way we can.
Thank you, Bethany. It's great to fill in on all my questions.
Oh, good. All right.
And
Thanks.
Alyssa and Mary Ann, absolutely. Good
Thanks,
job
Jane.
on this.
Thanks, Jane.
Thank you.
Just what I needed for tomorrow with my gardeners group.
Good. Good, good. No, I'm glad you could join.
Yeah. And Bethany, one other thing, I didn't hear you mention it because I was on another call. I'm sorry I was late. But did you mention that this is the southern end of our Indian Grass Preserve? And that eventually we love and would hope to have a trail that will go all the way from the northern end of Indian Grass Preserve down to the southern?
Yeah. We showed the map where it's located. I didn't mention our long-term hope for a trail, but yes, for sure, we want to be able to connect our preserves and have a really nice through hike experience through the middle of the Katy Prairie. And that would be really special if we're able to make that happen.
Well, we're definitely going to work on it.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Thanks, everybody.